Are you wondering why your man is not giving you what you want? Well, today I'll be sharing with you the reason why your man is not inspired to respond to you and what it is that you can do about it. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Miss Linda and I talk about dating, seduction, femininity, and everything that you need to elevate your love experiences. Now, I am a dating coach for women, and this babe asked me, she's like, Linda, I'm in a relationship with this guy for 6 years. However, we've reached a point where we are arguing all the time. Like, there's just no harmony. We are always talking about finances and fighting so much, and it's reached a point where the love life has just gone down the drain. Now, I have been married for 10 years, and I really understand this phase in a relationship. It's called the roommate phase, where you just feel like nothing is working, and it's really a dangerous period to reach in a relationship, because this is where you start to feel like, why on earth am I even on this relationship? And I've been through it, so I truly understand what this babe is going through. Now, for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned in my 10-year marriage is in the art of communication. Communication is one of the most underrated skill in a relationship. People talk about how to seduce a man, how to get him to, do all the tricks in the bedroom, but it all has to start in the mind. And how you do this is by cultivating the right communication skills, especially if you are a woman. Remember, as women, we communicate very differently from how men communicate. So the first thing I would love for you to figure out, if you find yourself in such a scenario where all you're doing is bickering and nagging and yelling, and even at the point where you're reaching where you're just no longer speaking to each other, the first thing that I'd love for you to do is just pump your brakes and really address some of the inner issues that you are going through. What I've come to learn is how you act out in your relationship just didn't start out with your man. It started out long way before you even got married to this guy or you even entered into a relationship with him. So the issue is you're replaying a lot of the things that you saw happening in your childhood. So maybe you saw your mom yelling and screaming. That's how you know how to communicate. So subconsciously you may resent that your mom used to scream a lot, but that's the only language you know. So you'll find that you're bringing a lot of those patterns into your relationship. So ask yourself, are you replaying anything that you saw growing up? And if you look at those relationships that you were in growing up, how did they end up? Because that should be one of your biggest wake-up call. If you didn't see any harmony or peace in those relationships, and you're acting the exact same way in your relationship, chances are you will end up the same way. Yeah? So take a step back and just look at how on earth did you end up communicating the way you did. And it's at this point that you have to start to make really conscious decision to break some of these patterns. And it also comes along with what are some of the beliefs that you had growing up. Maybe you had like people telling you that men are bad, men do only bad things to women, men cheat, men lie. So subconsciously, those are some of the things you're still carrying out within you. And that is where the biggest problem comes up. Such that yes, you're in a relationship with a man, but you're not bringing your true full self into that relationship. You're bringing a lot of some of the negative thinking that keeps you playing in your mind, that's making you feel so scared to just have a proper conversation with your man. And these things don't start out like in a big way. It starts out very, very slowly. In the dating phase, some of these things, honestly, they can get skipped over. Because if you're like me, you probably didn't live with your man before you got married. So when you got married, then it became this whole new routine. The first 2-3 years of your relationship, it's all rosy and you're forgiving each other and letting a lot of the nonsense slide. But it reaches a point like after year number 5, 6, 7, somebody sits and is like, mm-mm. The things that used to look cute, those toxic tendencies that used to look cute back in the day, are really causing a lot of pain in the relationship. So if you find yourself nagging and yelling and screaming, it's really more than just about your man. It's really a time, a wake-up call for you to really look within and start to address what are some of those fears that you have around your relationship. What are some of the fears that you have around your man? What are some of the fears you generally have about love, about dating, about relationships? You'll be so amazed how so many people end up in relationships. Yeah, you were brought up, you are told go to school, work hard, pass your exams, get a job. Then the next natural thing is get married. But then the same people who are pushing you towards getting married, they're the same ones who pump a lot of negative mindset, negative talk into your mind to make you fearful. They're the same ones who will tell you, oh, men are like that. Or if he does something wrong to you, just excuse them. Or you may have just plain old witnessed them suffer in relationships. So how on earth do you expect to have a different outcome if you don't make different conscious decisions? So the first thing is address your root fears around relationships. That is a really critical, important step, because it also opens you up to taking responsibility about where you've reached in your relationship. And trust you me, I had to do the same process to start to look at me and what are some of my fears, what are some of my insecurities. Because yes, I could be wanting to have a conversation with my man about maybe I'm telling him I'd love to go somewhere, but then the moment he says no, he triggers a very deep wound within me. And it's really at that point more than just my conversation with my man. It's probably a long story that it triggered something back then. Then now all of a sudden I'm starting to blame him, I'm starting to hate him. Meanwhile, I'm carrying a lot of pain and some issues that I really truly need to work through and just become aware and see how that's affecting my day-to-day relationship. So that's the first problem, not addressing your insecurities and negative mindset around men. That really impacts on how you project, especially on how you deal with difficult periods in your relationship. That's the first thing. The second thing, you have to let go of resentment. Once you've addressed your fears, you have to let go of resentment. Like, resentment is one of those things that honestly can kill a relationship. And I can talk about this because I know. Resentment starts slowly. You start to feel like you cannot stand this man. Of course, that energy will affect how you speak to him. Picture it this way. Look at it this way. Like when you enter a room and somebody gives you a nasty comment, how will you react? Of course, even if you meet that person in another place, you will have immediately that block like, oh my God, this person treated me badly, therefore I do not want anything to do with them. So even if they smile at you, you will not receive that smile. So, and that's what resentment does. It just blocks anything, any kind of positive, warm feelings that you have around your partner. And you have to address the resentment, because what I've come to learn, like, once you resent a person, it does not matter. You'll be speaking from a point of anger. There will be so much anger, there will be so much rage, there will be so much bitterness. And that's now how you cannot get anything you want from a man with that kind of energy. Because immediately he will start to feel like, oh my God, I'm facing another like masculine energy. Because if you look at how men are fire. The fire element is it's forceful, it's aggressive, it's always pushing, it's always moving, it's always action oriented. So when you're angry, you put yourself in that energy of wanting to push, want to pull, want to be aggressive. So immediately you start to be like two men in a conversation. Of course, he's gonna shut down. Even if you want him to help you do something very, very simple, he'll be like, hell no. And that will continue to bring a rift between the two of you. So address your resentment. Then the other thing, you have to cultivate your sweet, sweet femininity. Your feminine essence is so, so important. I remember back in the day when I was still in my corporate job and I was really climbing the corporate ladder. Of course, that required me to carry myself in a certain way in order for me to be respected in the boardroom, in order for me to lead teams. And I was communicating in a very authoritative way because that's what my role required me to do. I had to be like very confident and very strong in how I was communicating. What I didn't realize was I was bringing a lot of that energy into the home, slowly but slowly. Yeah? So I had to pull myself back to remind myself that the Linda in the office is not the same Linda at home. Yes, you're two people, but for your romantic relationship to work, it requires a certain level of softness. And that's a shift in terms of your energy. It's a shift in terms of how you speak. If in the office you're like, yes, I need you guys to go and give me the report and report back to me, at home you cannot talk to your man the same way. You cannot talk to him like you're commanding him. Of course, you're right, but your tone, how you speak to him, you approach him, that is where now your feminine wilds will have to come in. You are still the same person, but you're playing very different roles. And it becomes so automatic to do this once you've addressed some of those negative fears and insecurities that you have from your childhood issues, and you've also addressed the resentment. Then that way you start to soften as a woman, such that you're able to relax and truly just be open and have a deep connective communication conversation with this man. Even if your feelings are hurt at that point, you're at least in a place where you're more relaxed. Yeah? You're not highly charged. You have cooled down because you're starting to realize how you two have had a role to play in this relationship. And truthfully, the biggest issue I also come to see is many of you are getting advice from people whose relationships are not working. Yes, you trust your mom a lot. Yes, you trust your aunties. Or maybe you just don't know who to speak to when it comes to relationship. Anyone you get advice from, look at how their romantic lives are. Look at how they lead their relationships. Not everyone who's older than you knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to relationships. Your femininity is a skill that has to be cultivated. And many people ignore cultivating the right relationship skills. People will go to school, they'll want to do all the courses to get the degrees. They will want to do everything to make money, to work on their bodies. But when it comes to the area of love, you're immediately expected to just wake up like after you've done university, worked for like a year or two. All of a sudden you're supposed to wake up and know how to attract the right man, seduce him so that he can marry you, and then what? The only time people get to sit down and really just look at the whole relationship game is during premarital counseling. But that is honestly, if you ask me, too late. Some of this work honestly needs to happen even before you start dating or when you're dating, because it helps you lay the right foundation. Too many women are just going around thinking that looking good is all that matters. No, you can look good, yes, you will get a man, yes, and then what? What happens? What happens when you're in that relationship? And so many babes are like, okay, there's something wrong with this man, then they dump him and they move on. The thing is, you have to sit and look at you. Who taught you how to communicate? And is it working for you? Who taught you that men are pain givers? Who taught you that all men cheat? Who taught you to be scared of men? Who taught you to keep quiet? You have to look at what are some of these beliefs that you have that are blocking you from receiving the kind of love that you want. And this man that you're failing to communicate with is just a byproduct of the so many negative thoughts and fears that you've been carrying in your mind, generally about love and about relationships. And until you get over, you work through what some of those fears and insecurities are, I can promise you, you will continue to run into the same problem over and over again. Even if you change the same man, but you've not worked on your mindset, you've not worked on healing some of those wounds, you've not worked on your insecurities, you will still continue to encounter the same situation over and over again. I was even having a conversation with this babe I know. She was married for 10 years, then the relationship didn't work out. Now she's with another man. And I could hear her, she kept saying, like, even if this relationship doesn't work, it's okay, I'll still move on. You see that kind of mindset, that already shows me this is a woman who has been hurt before. She's still not yet confident that she can enjoy a great relationship. That's why she's already setting herself up for failure, but already saying, you know what, even if the second relationship doesn't work, I'll still get another man. That kind of negative mindset is one that's filled with fear. It is filled with fear, and I can promise you, the moment her relationship starts to become rocky, it's going to bring up a lot of the trauma that she experienced in her first relationship, especially if she's not like tried to do any work and try to level up past her past relationship. She'll probably leave this man and go and look for another one. That's why sometimes we keep repeating these patterns over and over and over again. Yeah, so you really have to cultivate your femininity and learn how to speak in a way that's softer, that's warmer, that's more heart-centered, and it's really more playful. And it's really not about wanting to combat and win. You can win, but you need the right kind of energy to be able to influence your man to listen to you. And it really is about influencing men, by the way, at the end of the day. Okay. Then the other thing is in, like I mentioned, how you speak. Are you blaming him? You see, anytime the big mistake we make as women is when we start to have a conversation, you want to blame a man. So look at it. Maybe he was to bring you, I don't know, let's use a gift. What gift? Maybe he was supposed to bring some groceries from work. Then he comes home. Then you're like, you forgot to bring the groceries. Already he'll feel attacked. Your tone of voice, of course, you're angry. Already you're telling him, you forgot to bring the groceries, which means I am blaming you. Okay? Let's see how you can reframe that. How can you take a step back and try and understand, okay, babe, so how was your day? Start with finding out how was your day. Okay? After you found out how his day was, then you can inquire and say, oh, babe, I'm feeling a little bit worried. Did you remember to come with the groceries? That conversation, you've told him how you're feeling, worried. A good man always wants to make sure the wife is happy or the baby is happy. They understand your feelings, and you can only feel safe to communicate your feelings if you've done your inner work. Many women are scared to be emotionally vulnerable because they grew up being taught that they're supposed to be tough, they're supposed to be responsible, that it's weak to be vulnerable. And part of your feminine essence is to be able to let your guard down, especially if it's with a proven man. If you're in a relationship with a man, it means that you've, to a great degree, let's assume, he's already proven himself to you. Well, if you truly do not feel emotionally safe with this man, then you really truly should not be in a relationship. But I'm speaking to a babe who is in a relationship with a man who treats her well, and they're just going through this crazy period that sometimes happens in relationships. Okay, so instead of blaming, instead of attacking, try and understand what exactly made him not remember the groceries, and find out how then can you, or how can he be able to prove himself again. Because I'm sure if a guy is nice, he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, let me go and get the groceries. But it's at this point that a woman will start to go in for the man. She's like, I knew it. You always disappoint me. I'm never happy. I can never trust you. La 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 la. Then it goes into a deep conversation until the man is like, you know what? I cannot please this woman. He shuts the door and goes away. No groceries for you. You're in a more messier scenario. That's why your emotionally healing work is so important, because you're complaining about groceries, but it's much more than groceries. Okay. Then the last thing, you have to address how you look. You have to address how you look. If you've been in a relationship for 6 years, I know it's so comfortable for you to reach a place where you no longer look after how you look. Men are visual. In order for him to even pay attention to you, in order for you to even listen to you, yes, you'll have done your inner work. Yes, you'll have let go of your resentment. Yes, you'd have watched your energy, but you have to look good. You have to look good. That on its own is exciting. It inspires a man to sit and listen to you. Okay, so let me know what you think and which of these tips are you going to be using in your relationships. And once again, I offer private tutoring. If you need help with rekindling your love life, check out my details in the description box below, and have a nice day. Bye.